Greetings, my name is Emily and my Etsy store is Yesterday's Stash, and I have this book titled Rustic Blue on my Etsy store, and I wanted to show you some of the pieces of this book to give you an opportunity to see how I have evolved in this journey of creating junk journals. Many years ago, I started collecting lace and fabric and old books and old magazines and all sorts of things. And just it's been maybe 5 years ago that I've been able to come together and discover the junk journal community, and it has just been amazing. This journey that I have embarked on. And this is one of the books that I have put together. It's called Rustic Blue because the I would say Regency dress, the Empire waist dress, the Regency period of fashion was Empire waist, and this would have been something that a lady in that era would have worn out in her garden or would have worn in the morning around her house, and would have dressed up more than this if she was going to go walking in the community or where she saw people. So this is a example of that period, and so much of this book that I've put together here has things that women in that day would have liked, or that generally women, are interested in. I have done some buttons around the kind of the frame of this lady, and have added some blue twine or ribbon with it, and lots of lace, some Prima Flowers, a Tim Holtz, The Journey Awakens the Soul here, which I have put some a fabric flower here on the side. I have also put fabric flowers and a little blue bling in the center of the flower, along with some lace. And the pattern that I've used for the outside is sort of a newsprint, and I have put the Tim Holtz corners on them. And the book exactly is 5 1/4 by 8 1/2 by 2 inches, the spine, and kind of shows many of the things that I have been collecting over the years, starting with postcards. This is actually a postcard that I got from a company called Zazzle, and then I have been collecting lace for many years, not just from the old home place, but also from just whenever I'm anywhere. I tend to find the junk stores or the thrift stores, and I look for lace and old buttons and things of that nature. These little flowers here that you see, and also I've got those flowers inside, come from a piece of fabric that I actually found on Etsy. And what this is, and I've actually tea stained it, is you can cut the individual flowers out and make them smaller flowers, or you can cut out a strip, or you can use the whole back, say, for the back or the front of a journal. Going inside here, I do have one of these Tim Holtz attachments here, and I have attached it here with this little another Tim Holtz product. The book is actually 112 pages, front and back, and it actually has 100 little tags that you can pull out. If you pulled out all 100 tags, then the book would lay, quite flat. But because of the different embellishments, it's a pretty fat book, and I have found that it pretty easily attaches here. It also has lots of different lace and fabric, ribbon, or fibers, and I counted, I have about 25 different laces or fibers and things of that nature. Another thing that I collect is bookmarks. Postcards, and these two postcards are from this one is from it's a picture of an old one of these thatched roofed houses in the Tudor style. I tend to collect a lot of information and pictures. I'm an Anglophile at heart and also a Jane Austen fan. So that's how many of my collection started, is with these sorts of items. These are examples of old soaps and creams and rose water and things that a woman would have been interested in at that time. I also have a real love for making handmade flowers. This is a piece of newsprint that I have folded around, put a little tiny doily on it and a button and some fiber, and then of course distressed it. Here's an example of a women's dress form and a sewing machine that would have been used, an old sewing machine from that period of time. And I have in here quite a few stamps or stickers that I have also picked up from Zazzle. That they're of Jane Austen, and what you do is you buy them by the sheet, and it has quite a few Jane Austen quotes and pictures and books, and so I have found them to be very useful as I have been collecting her things. Here is a tuck spot with an old lace that looks like it's 100% cotton. Another interesting thing that I have found is in old magazines, and I'm talking about turn of the century magazines, the interesting advertisements. This is called the Pearl Suit and Skirt Hangers, and I've put some washi tape around it and converted it into a tag. This is actually a pattern that a woman gets as a tag, that a pattern from the thin pattern that we are used to seeing. The paper pad that I'm using here, this one right here, has quite a bit of lavender, and the book has quite a bit of lavender because the paper patterns that I used, or the paper packs that I have used, there's 3 different ones. First one is from Downton Abbey. And it has just beautiful lavender colors in it that I thought, and light blues and some glossy, that I thought would be very fitting for a book about an 18th century woman. And I also found the DCWV, the lace and linen stack. And my favorite stack of all times, or so far, is this Prima called Tales of You and Me. And I have just really enjoyed this paper pack and have used it in quite a few different journals. And of course, the feminine, the pinks and purples and lavenders are all colors that are in that work really, really nice. But the books, the magazines that I have collected, here's an example of one. It's called the Century magazine, doesn't have a cover on it. And it is from November of 1893. But in the back, there are all these different advertisements that you can pick and choose from and cut out. And then what I do is I usually add a backing to it to thicken it up a little bit. And here's one I've cut up. And then add some lines for journaling on. But these books, most of the pictures are black and white or etchings, but the articles in them are just so interesting to read, and it's all different kinds of literature, from poetry to comics to short stories and things of this nature. Here's another one that I have found. It's called Muncie. And Muncie this one is from 1895. And again, the book's sort of tattered and worn. But in the back, here are examples of different, this is here actually is a silver plate advertisement, one for a hall clock. So it's just really interesting to see the different advertisements that are, were back in that day. I've tried to use stamping here. This is a chair, a comfortable chair, kind of give the book sort of an at-home feel. Several different quotes from Jane Austen. And another thing that I enjoy doing is looking through books or magazines and cutting out the pictures that I like and putting some sort of finish on the outside and then a cover on the back that can be used as a tag. So that's what this is. And again, here's more of the paper, and it's kind of a lavender geometric. Kind of looks like maybe something that would go on a wall for wallpaper. I have made some trips to England and to London, and here's an example of a set of napkins that I bought from when I was there, and it's a beautiful little calico prints. Always include a 4-leaf clover in each, but this is a napkin that I have Mod Podged onto a piece of paper, and then this is a little tuck spot that has another quote from Jane Austen. You can also find lots of advertisements if you go into the public domain websites that they have. I thought this was interesting because it's of a little girl who's looking at a book at home. It kind of gave me the feeling of Jane Austen, who, loved being at home, loved her home. These 2 pages right here, you can see, again, some more of the book pages from the Downton Abbey collection. This is from an old dictionary that came from the old home place. It came from my great aunt, who was a professor at a university. And this particular dictionary, she had put her name and it said 1938. And then these are some more prints from the internet that are in the public domain. So there's just lots of ways, not just magazines and old magazines and newer magazines, but there's lots of ways to find interesting pictures and interesting examples of colors. I've got colors that go together, and prints, florals, lots of florals. Jane Austen, was a garden flower person, and most of my books have her as a theme, either a major theme or a background theme. So much of what I've collected over the year are things that Jane would have enjoyed. And I've put garment pins on most all of these. This is an example right here of the that same fabric that I showed you just a minute ago, and how I've just made it a strip to go across this pocket here. And this is an example of a belly band, and I kind of had fun with some paper. Again, more paper from the Downton Abbey collection. This is an interesting article that I found that said it's a world of fashion. It's actually a DVD that I purchased from an old publisher, a used publisher, and it has information about how to, some information about fashion back in those days. Jane Austen wrote several books, and after she died, this guy, Mr. Brock, and this says here 1848, he did the illustrations for a lot of her books, and this is an example of one of the illustrations, and I have put a paper on the back so that it can be used as a tuck spot or as a writing or tag. So here are more of the advertisements, and what I've done here is I've cut them out and sewn them and then made them into little tags here. But I've also found that back when I was at this publishing, at an old publishing bookstore recently, and the lady showed me how back in the day people who were putting ads together would use these strips of it's called graphic art tape, and what it is they would put them, that's how they did it before the days of the computer, and they would put different, there's like hundreds of different patterns that people who were putting ads together for newspapers and magazines would do. So some of the I have enjoyed like the ones that don't have a border around them, then I'll come in and do that, put them around them. But these particular ones here I just sewed around and I didn't put the border around it. I like to make these little books, I call them take and go books, just using up leftover paper and you know, just a book that you can carry around in your pocketbook, wallet, whatever, and make into you know, a list from that. This is some old stationery that I found, half partial packs too. I made a belly band here with old music sheets. And then I have seen several of these. These are like borders that you purchase that go around the edge of a big scrapbook page. This is an example. This is a K & Company, and it shows all these different, and some of them are a little wide and some of them are a little narrow, but this is an example of how you could take something like this and cut it down to fit the page and kind of give it a little more of a color coordination. What I have here is a bunch of garment pins with small little journaling pages or journaling tags that are pinned to an old piece of lace. And you know, again, they can be taken off and used for something else. And you know, that even the lace can be removed and used for something else. So more tuck spots and tags. And another thing that I enjoy going to England and London and shopping, not just touring, but shopping. But I've also started collecting some of the old buildings that are in England, and England has so many beautiful castles and, you know, historic buildings and just really quaint villages to go and visit. But this is an example of, it's called Alfriston Village in England. It's a clergy house and gardens. And I just enjoy collecting these, cutting them out, looking at them. And I'm going to go back to England at some point and continue to look for and collect and sightsee. Here's an example of an old building. This is the house that William Wordsworth, I think is a poet, and he lived in the Lake District of England. And his sister Dora lived with him here in this house, and after he died, then she continued to live there. And I have recently found these really interesting paper clips that are in the shape of a teardrop, and I've included some of those in there as well. This is a pair of old shoes from that day, and then just another tag with another one of those. When I was in London, I went to a bookstore, and they had this really interesting card game, and it's called Try to Match all of the Jane Austen couples. It's called Jane Austen's Matchmaker. This particular two cards that I'm including in this are of Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. And so that's as a part of that. And then this is a tag that I made. This is called an Anatomy of a Janeite, and it shows all the different descriptions of a person who is a Jane Austen fan. But I've actually used that beeswax on that, and what you do is you buy the beeswax and then you plug in a little iron and you put the beeswax on the picture and you iron it down and it melts it, and it's a really fun way to add a dimension to your tags. And here's another handmade flower. This one is made with just a little piece of lace. Moving along here, we also have another belly band that has another handmade flower and some more tuck spots. These are actually origami sheets that are just so pretty that I added some washi tape to give it a little flair, but they can be used as tuck spots. Another handmade flower, some more use of lace, and then a tuck spot, a London tower, and then a statement that says says beauty is not in the face, beauty is a light in the heart, and just some positivity statements throughout as well. This is some of that paper from A Tales of You and Me that I kind of did some fun collaging on. I took rickrack, I took a flower, I took some bling, some lace, and a statement, and cut it out and did a little border on it, and then it's got where you can journal on it on the back. And I don't know if you've seen these. I actually found these at a cupcake shop, but they're little positive statements. This particular one, you flip it open. I haven't opened these, but you flip them open, and it's called a pop open, and and it has positive statements in it. An example of what one of those looks like when I went to the store and found them is this one, pop open cards. It's a whole set of them, but 30 come per box, and this one says Carpe Diem, and they call them thoughtfuls. It actually comes from an organization called Compendium, and the website is live-inspired.com. And some more pictures, a corset, lots of things that a woman would appreciate back in those days, and as well today. This right here is another example of where I took a napkin and did some Mod Podging on it. These are some pictures of costumes or dress fashion back in that time in history, and a little tag here. More of the pages from the Downton Abbey book, more lace, more ads, and this right here is an example of a postcard that I got from Zazzle that has sort of some pictures by that Mr. Brock, H.M. Brock, I believe is his name, the illustrations where he illustrated those books after she died, and the books became published and became famous. More of the napkins, and then this right here is what we call smash book tags. I'm not sure if you're familiar with smash books, but smash books come for I get them at Tuesday morning for 49 cents a piece, and they are actually books of basically lists, and they all have a theme. This one is family. This one is top 10, like your top 10 books that I want to read, or top 10. And then this is special occasions. So we have smash books, and the smash kind of idea seems to be popular right now. This actually is paper from a Tim Holtz collection. And more flowers and more lace and more positive statements. And here's an example of more of the advertisements. And this is where these two already had the frame around the advertisements. Here's another one of these collage sheets. At the very end of each book, I try to include things that I wouldn't normally, that I couldn't get in the book, things that I wanted to put in the book. I have an empty envelope here, but I like to include things in the box. Here's an example of a heart that has been made from a quilt that you could see the stitching on the back side. That's an example. I like to give napkins. I like to put doilies and just lots of different things that I have extras of to throw in at the end of the book or in the box. So again, it's called Rustic Blue. It's a very unique book in that it has a variety of themes, but mostly the theme is around women and ladies and 18th century, and I know you have a lot of choices of where to look for your books, where to go for your journals, and I appreciate your taking the time to look at this one. So that's signing off from yesterday's stash, and thank you for watching.